Well, here we are. It's been a crazy week at the old day job, and admittingly, I have nothing researched for you today. With that being said, though, I have been having a nagging thought while trying to figure out if I'd half-ass something or just take the week off. What do you know about worship? What do any of us really know about worship? Everyone loves a good, strange, weird, or bizarre story. Well, welcome to the American South, where dark legends and haunted history lurk around every corner. Where superstition, folklore, and a touch of backwoods magic blend with everyday culture. Some say, in order to survive. This is Dixie After Dark. Have you ever read the book American Gods by Neil Gaiman? If not, and if you're an avid reader, I highly suggest it. If you're not a reader, here's the concept in a nutshell. The Vikings landed in North America centuries ago and found themselves stranded. The winds were not in their favor to sail home, and the land was hostile, as well as the people that they encountered. The Vikings yearned to return home, so they began praying to their own god, Odin, the Allfather, to grant them the winds and a safe passage home. Now, whether Odin didn't hear them or simply refused isn't directly known, but the end result was the same. The Vikings remained stranded. They decided to escalate their prayers, even to the point of each man plucking out one of their own eyes, much in the same fashion that Odin himself had lost an eye, in the hopes that it would be seen as a sacrifice, thus finally gaining Odin's favor. But still, there was no wind. After days of prayers and suffering, the Vikings finally figured out how to gain Odin's attention. The men all turned on each other in an all-out, every-man-for-himself battle. After all, Odin was the god of war. Surely a fierce battle would grab Odin's attention and favor. And you know what? That did the trick. The fighting men immediately stopped when the wind picked up, pushing back out to sea. The men abandoned everything and rushed to their ships. Well, those that were still alive after the battle anyway. They clambered aboard their ships and set sail right away with only the clothes and supplies that they had on them. There was no time to waste, and everything else was left behind. Their supplies, their fallen brothers, and a single carved effigy of Odin himself. That lays the groundwork of the entire book. Odin, or part of him anyway, was left behind in North America. Time progressed and times changed, all the way up to modern times. Now, the old gods were weakened. In this fictional story, the gods gained their strength from worship itself. Now, with belief waning, their powers and influence were being diminished. Where's my Peter Pan fans at? You know how clapping can revive Tinkerbell? That being the audience's way of showing that they believe in fairies? Yeah, same premise here. So, we all on the same page so far? Back to the book American Gods. There were a new rival faction of gods that threatened the existence of the old gods. But these new gods were not just newly worshipped gods. They were new gods altogether, an unintentional creation of man itself, born from unintentional worship, as it were. And what were these new gods? They were the result of the worship of technology, money, media, government. Intentional or unintentional worship didn't matter. There were new gods on the scene now, and they were more powerful than ever. The story goes on with Odin trying to raise an army of old gods to band together and overthrow the new gods. But the thought that always stuck with me was the idea of the new gods gaining power from unintentional worship. In the story, technology, money, media, it kind of makes sense. Even if you're not one of these people yourself, we all know someone that could be described as giving at least one of these deities unintentional worship. Hell, it's something I find myself struggling with at times. Yeah, I can hear some of you already. It's not really worship. Well, is it? How many people blow off family or friends for a favorite TV show? How much time has been sacrificed to video games or countless scrolling on social media? Is worship countless hours of devotion? A sacrifice of time and energy? I guess we should start with the literal definition though, and work out from there. Worship is the act or rite that makes up a formal expression of reverence for a deity. Now, it just so happens that the ones mentioned in American Gods were newly created deities, but once created, they were still deities. Rather, if people acknowledged it or not, or didn't realize it at all, didn't matter. Let's bring it back to Christianity even. Satan doesn't care if you believe in him or not, as long as you don't believe in God. Ever heard the stories of manipulating spirits? Now ask yourself, why? Why would a spirit have the need to manipulate someone? Because they're bored? Maybe, I guess. But the potential is there for something a lot darker. Like with Satan mentioned earlier. Satan will tell you 100 truths just to be able to slip in one lie. The only reason behind those truths is to get you to believe a single lie. That's it. It's really that simple. Simple in thought, at least. But then again, we're talking about entities that have been around since the beginning of time. They are more cunning and practiced than you could ever imagine. So, where am I going with this? Well, let's focus on the idea of worship, specifically unintentional worship. We've talked about it here on this channel a few times already, and you didn't even realize it. Hell, I didn't realize it. Is this worship? Is this worship? What about this? With me so far? Is this worship? Or is this worship? Or maybe this? What about this? Is this worship? How many of these events exist? We've touched on quite a few in videos past already, and we just focus on the South here. There are countless events and festivals like this all around the world. Are we finding creatures or spirits manipulating us to bring us all to a central location? To gain power from our presence? To have us recognize them? To worship them? But people will say, but these things just commemorate an event that happened, that's all. And the majority of these events are more recent anyway, a lot more recent than actual religious worship. So what? Last I checked, there isn't a definitive timeline set that makes one thing religious and others not. Heck, Wicca is one of the more popular religions now, and it was only founded in 1954 by Gerald Gardner. Then there will be those that say, "Not me, Dixie, not even with ghost stories. I'm more of a cryptid person myself." Okay then, I got you. Have you ever stumbled across those cryptid researchers that leave gifts for creatures such as Bigfoot? They leave them in the same spot in the hopes of creating a routine for the creature, baiting the creature, so to speak, or to gain its trust. How many times have you heard of the researchers call these sites names like the gifting spot, the offering tree, the offering site? What are we doing out here, folks? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not pointing fingers. I said, what are we doing out here? Could it all be a form of unintentional worship? I can hear people already. Well, what about you, Dixie? People tune in every week to listen to you. Are they worshiping you? Well, I guess that's just something you have to ask yourself. For me, I don't see it that way. If anything, it's me worshiping you guys. Here I am, after a busy week at the day job with no research story to tell, rambling on and on, just because I didn't want to leave you guys hanging. Sure, I could have just made a community tab post saying I was taking the week off, but I felt the need to give you something, even when there was nothing to give. Isn't that what sacrifice is? Is that what a true offering is? Giving something when you have nothing to give? Don't look to me for answers. All I have is questions. This is just me saying hey to all of you that have been there from the start, and all of you that have decided to join us later in the evolution of things. We'll get back to the normal swing of things soon enough, don't you worry. But who knows? Maybe you'll like this little rambling off the top of my head, and we can turn it into some sort of midweek thing. Who knows? As far as right now, though, I just wanted to give you all something, and maybe make you think a little. Make of that what you will.